The Lakers' empire is crumbling right before our eyes. For the first time in over 2 decades, LeBron James, the king himself, is being rejected by the very fans who once worshipped him. We're talking about a man who's been an all-star lock for 21 consecutive years, now sitting at a humiliating 9th place in fan voting. And that's just the beginning of this disaster. The Lakers are in full meltdown mode, with blowout losses stacking up, their coach questioning if his players even care anymore, and Bronny James struggling so badly in the G League that people are wondering if nepotism is the only reason he's still on an NBA roster. This isn't just a rough patch, this is the potential end of an era, and it's happening faster than anyone could have imagined. Before we dive deep into this absolute nightmare unfolding in Los Angeles, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story has layers that'll shock you, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Trust me, what we're about to uncover gets even darker. Let's rewind to December 29, 2025, when the NBA dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the basketball world. The first All-Star voting returns were announced, and something unprecedented happened. LeBron James, the man who has dominated All-Star voting for the better part of 2 decades, who has been the top vote-getter a record 10 times, who led voting for 7 consecutive years, suddenly found himself in 9th place in the Western Conference. 9th? Let that sink in for a moment. To put this in perspective, LeBron James received only 536,555 fan votes. That might sound like a lot, but in the world of NBA All-Star voting, it's a devastating rejection. Luka Doncic, his own Lakers teammate, was the overall leading vote-getter with over 1.2 million tallies. Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Victor Wembanyama, Stephen Curry, they were all ahead of him. But here's where it gets truly shocking. Deni Avdija, a relatively lesser-known player for the Portland Trail Blazers, received nearly 70,000 more votes than LeBron James. Even Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics outpolled the king. This is the same LeBron James who just last season finished with over 3.3 million votes, the same man who was first in the fan vote from 2016 through 2023, only interrupted by Kobe Bryant's farewell tour. The dramatic collapse in his popularity isn't just surprising, it's historically unprecedented for a player of his caliber who's still actively competing at a relatively high level. Now, some might argue that LeBron's late start to the season due to a sciatica injury that kept him out for 14 games explains the voting gap. But here's the problem with that theory. Other top vote-getters like Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Victor Wembanyama, and even Steph Curry have all missed similar or greater percentages of their team's games this season. The injury excuse doesn't hold water. The harsh truth is becoming increasingly clear. Fans are moving on. The NBA world no longer orbits around LeBron James. His streak of 21 consecutive All-Star selections, a record that began when he was just a 20-year-old in his 2nd season, is genuinely in jeopardy of ending. Think about what the league looked like when this streak started. Steph Curry and Kevin Durant were still in high school. Kevin Garnett was the reigning MVP for the Timberwolves, and the entire landscape of basketball was completely different. But the All-Star voting debacle is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the Lakers' crisis. Behind closed doors, things are far worse than most fans realize. The team's performance has been nothing short of embarrassing, and it's eating away at the foundation of what was supposed to be a championship-contending roster. Let's talk about Christmas Day, 2025. The Lakers were supposed to shine on the biggest regular season stage in basketball, playing against the Houston Rockets in front of a national audience. Instead, they delivered one of the most humiliating performances of the season. Houston dominated from start to finish, never trailing in a crushing 119-96 victory. The Rockets opened with a 14-point lead in the first quarter and never looked back. By halftime, the game was essentially over, and the second half became a painful exercise in watching the Lakers go through the motions. Luka Doncic, returning from injury, turned the ball over 3 times in his first 2 minutes of playing time. Austin Reeves, one of the team's most reliable performers, left at halftime with left calf soreness, adding yet another injury to a mounting list. The Rockets, meanwhile, were relentless. Amen Thompson dropped 26 points, Kevin Durant poured in 25, and Alperen Sengun posted a double-double. Houston shot over 53% from the field, controlled the glass, and dictated tempo from the opening tip. After the game, head coach Redick didn't mince words. In what can only be described as a scathing indictment of his own team, Redick questioned their professionalism and their will to compete. "We don't care enough right now," Redick declared, his frustration palpable. "And that's the part that bothers you a lot. We don't care enough to do the things that are necessary. We don't care enough to be a professional." Think about that for a moment. An NBA head coach on Christmas Day on national television is essentially saying his players don't care. These aren't bench warmers or fringe rotation players he's talking about. This is a roster featuring LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Anthony Davis. Redick continued, pointing out that when the team executes and brings effort, they're good, but when they don't, they're terrible, and on Christmas, they were terrible. This wasn't an isolated incident either. The loss on Christmas was the Lakers' third straight defeat, their sixth in their last 10 games. What's even more damning is a statistical trend that Lakers fans can't ignore. All 10 of the Lakers' losses this season have come by double digits. When this team loses, they don't just lose, they get blown out, they get embarrassed, they get exposed. The pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. The Lakers started the season with an impressive 15-4 record, creating optimism that maybe, just maybe, this roster could make a deep playoff run. But since then, they've been wildly inconsistent, winning close games by the skin of their teeth and getting absolutely demolished when things go wrong. Fans on social media have been brutal in their assessment. One Lakers supporter wrote, "From the start of the season, the Lakers won lots of close games by just a few points, but when they lose by a million points. Sorry, but the Lakers team is a complete joke. They have zero chance in the playoffs, assuming they even get there." Another fan didn't pull any punches. Again, the Rockets exposed what we already knew, that the Lakers are horrible defensively, and it starts with Luka. He gave no effort defensively tonight and went back to his old ways of complaining to the officials all game. The defensive issues are at the core of the Lakers' problems. After the crushing Christmas loss, Redick made it clear that Saturday's practice would be uncomfortable for the players. He called out specific members of the roster without naming names, saying that too often, certain guys don't want to make the choice to play the right way, and it's consistent who those players are. Luka Doncic himself acknowledged the crisis, telling reporters after the game, "I don't know what has to change, but definitely something needs to change. We've been blown out the last 3 games. Something has to change." The 5-time All-Star's admission is telling. Even the team's superstar acquisitions recognize that something is fundamentally broken.
But perhaps the most revealing moment came after an earlier loss to the Phoenix Suns. Redick openly called out a player, without using his name, for being unfamiliar with a basic part of the Lakers' strategy. When an NBA head coach is publicly saying that players don't even know the team's basic tactical concepts, you know there are serious problems with preparation, buy-in, and professionalism. The frustration from Lakers fans has reached a boiling point. Social media has become a war zone of disappointed supporters venting their anger. One fan summed up the prevailing mood. "The Lakers have stuck out like a sore thumb in this Christmas Day slate, playing some terrible basketball right now. A bad mix of a flawed roster and a bunch of guys playing well below their capabilities. You can see the lack of belief creeping in." Trades are now being openly discussed by insiders and fans alike. Kevin O'Connor, a prominent NBA analyst, declared after the Christmas loss, "Trades are coming in Los Angeles, just a matter of who and when. Without them, this team has no chance of winning a title this year. That much is obvious after watching the Lakers lately and listening to what Redick said post-game." The roster construction questions have been mounting. Despite bringing in Marcus Smart, DeAndre Ayton, and Jake LaRavia during the offseason, the Lakers still lack the defensive identity and wing depth needed to compete with the league's elite teams. Critics have characterized the Lakers' front office as
absolutely horrifically run, pointing out that the moves made have only addressed symptoms rather than fixing the root problems. One particularly pointed critique came from a frustrated fan. "Mid is hell. A 40-year-old LeBron being your best defender in your starting lineup is inexcusable." The comment highlights a brutal reality. The Lakers' supposed stars on paper are underperforming dramatically, forcing LeBron, now well into his 40s, to carry a defensive load that should belong to younger, more athletic players. And speaking of age and expectations, let's address the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about: Bronny James. While LeBron's All-Star voting collapse and the Lakers' on-court implosion dominate headlines, there's another storyline unfolding that might be even more uncomfortable for the organization. Bronny James, LeBron's son and a second-round pick in the 2024 NBA draft, is struggling mightily at both the NBA and G League levels, and it's raising serious questions about whether he deserves his roster spot. Let's start with his NBA performance. Through 14 appearances with the Lakers this season, Bronny is averaging a meager 1.9 points and 1.7 assists per game in just 10.2 minutes of playing time. His shooting splits are alarming: 28.6% from the field, 25% from three-point range. These aren't just bad numbers. These are historically poor efficiency metrics that would typically get a player cut from the roster or sent permanently to the G League. But here's where it gets more problematic. Even when the Lakers have been without multiple guards due to injuries over recent games, Bronny has played just 9 garbage time minutes total. Head coach Redick has made his stance crystal clear. He doesn't trust Bronny James in any meaningful basketball situation. The most damning example came during a recent game against the Phoenix Suns. With Luka Doncic and Gabe Vincent both out, the Lakers started Nick Smith Jr. Yes, the same Nick Smith Jr. who was cut by the Charlotte Hornets in September before his rookie contract even expired. The Lakers signed Smith Jr. to a two-way deal, and despite having a career -2.0 value over replacement player, he's more trusted than LeBron's son. That should tell you everything you need to know about how the coaching staff views Bronny's readiness for NBA basketball. Even more telling, Redick was desperately searching for any spark during the nightmare performance against the Suns, trying different lineup combinations and rotations. But he didn't turn to Bronny until he was essentially waving the white flag in garbage time. The message couldn't be clearer. Bronny isn't part of the solution, and the team doesn't trust him to contribute when games matter. So what about the G League? Surely Bronny must be dominating down there, right? Unfortunately, the reality is far more complicated. His G League statistics paint a mixed picture at best. In his most recent appearance for the South Bay Lakers, Bronny scored just 10 points with 5 rebounds and 1 assist, shooting 4 for 7 from inside the arc, but missing all 5 of his three-point attempts. His overall G League performance this season shows averages of around 11 points and 8 assists per game in limited appearances. While those numbers look more respectable on paper, the efficiency remains a major concern. He's shooting just 23.1% from three-point range in the G League, though he has seen better success on two-point attempts at 62.5%. In what many considered a promising debut with South Bay earlier this season, Bronny scored 15 points with 4 rebounds and 8 assists, shooting 50% from the field and 40% from three. It seemed like maybe, just maybe, he was finding his rhythm. But the very next game, reality set in. Playing 35 minutes, the most on the team that night, Bronny scored just 7 points while grabbing 5 rebounds and dishing out 8 assists. The problem? He shot 3 for 11 from the field with a dismal 1 for 8 performance from three-point range. The inconsistency tells a story. Bronny had one strong game that gave people hope, followed immediately by a reality check that exposed his limitations. His shooting remains unreliable, his decision-making is questionable, and while his defensive intensity is acknowledged as a positive, it's not enough to compensate for his offensive struggles. Here's where the situation gets truly uncomfortable for everyone involved. Multiple sources and fan reactions have pointed out that Bronny has been awful in the G League this year, to the point where people are finding it hard to believe given that he showed some potential flashes during limited NBA minutes earlier in the season. The harsh assessment from one analyst was particularly brutal. Bronny has been so bad thus far that Coach Redick doesn't trust him unless the game is decided. Lakers fans, who typically support their young players through struggles, have been surprisingly critical. The consensus seems to be that Bronny wouldn't be on an NBA roster at all if not for his famous father. One prominent Lakers outlet put it bluntly, "It is fair to question if Bronny would even be on the team if not for his famous father." The organization now faces a genuine dilemma. Bronny has a guaranteed contract with $1.2 million coming in the 2026-27 season, but the Lakers will have to think hard about locking in the full deal. With the team desperately needing more depth and facing a crucial February 5th trade deadline, Bronny isn't untouchable. Some insiders believe he could even be on the chopping block if the right deal comes along. Bronny himself has tried to maintain a positive outlook, telling media after his South Bay debut, "The league is meant to develop players, so I'm coming down here with an open mind. I'm not going down here with a negative mindset like I'm being sent down to a lesser level. I'm just going down and I'm trying to better myself every game and every play." He also detailed a conversation with JJ Redick about his role. "Me and JJ have talked about how all the ball handlers on the parent team and stuff like that. So I've got to learn to be effective off the ball and have a .5 mentality and shoot the ball when I have it, have an open shot. So I'm trying to get better at that."
But words and intentions don't translate to production on the court. The stark contrast between Bronny's G League performance and his NBA struggles is jarring. In 7 G League games, he averaged 13.4 points, 3.4 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 1.1 steals per game, with 36.6% shooting from the field. But in the NBA, he's shooting just 6.3% from the field, a number so low it's almost incomprehensible for a professional basketball player at any level. The most damning statistic? Bronny has gone 1 for 16 from the field in his 13 NBA games, one made field goal out of 16 attempts. Even in the 15 minutes Redick gave him against the Philadelphia 76ers, the most minutes he's played all season in a non-garbage time situation, Bronny failed to score a single point, though he did manage 3 rebounds and an assist. What does all of this say about the state of the Los Angeles Lakers? We're looking at a franchise in genuine crisis, with problems at every level of the organization. The team's on-court performance is wildly inconsistent, featuring spectacular blowout losses and defensive lapses that make them look like a lottery team rather than championship contenders. The coaching staff is openly questioning the effort and professionalism of the players. The fan base has lost faith, with supporters venting their frustration on social media and questioning the front office's roster construction decisions. At the center of it all is LeBron James, a 40-year-old legend whose remarkable career may be approaching its conclusion in the most uncomfortable way possible. His all-star voting collapse isn't just a statistical anomaly, it's a reflection of shifting fan sentiment and the reality that even the greatest players eventually age out of relevance. Hall of Famer Kevin Garnett has even gone on record urging fans not to waste their all-star votes on LeBron, suggesting that he doesn't want to play in the exhibition game anyway, and pointing out that he sat out last year's event. LeBron does not want to play in the All-Star game, Garnett stated on his podcast. "Listen, all you people out there that are going to vote for LeBron, save your vote. He didn't play in it last year. Why would you expect him to play it this year?" The comment speaks to a larger truth that many are reluctant to acknowledge. LeBron James may have mentally and emotionally checked out from certain aspects of being an NBA player. His focus is shifted to business ventures, media projects, and preparing for life after basketball. The fire that once burned so brightly may be dimming, and fans can sense it. That's why they're not voting for him. That's why the mystique is fading. Meanwhile, Bronny's struggles add another layer of complexity to the Lakers' situation. The optics of keeping him on the roster when he can't produce at an NBA level, especially while the team desperately needs additional depth, are terrible.
It reinforces the narrative that the Lakers are being run more like a family business than a professional basketball organization committed to winning championships. The franchise is at a crossroads. Do they blow up the roster and rebuild around their younger pieces? Do they make a big trade to try to maximize the remaining time they have with LeBron and Anthony Davis? Do they stay the course and hope that improved health and execution can turn things around? And what do they do about Bronny, a player who clearly isn't ready for NBA basketball, but whose presence is tied directly to keeping his father happy? The answers to these questions will define not just the rest of this season, but potentially the next era of Lakers basketball. With the trade deadline looming on February 5th, Rob Pelinka and the front office have crucial decisions to make. Every loss, every blowout defeat, every moment of LeBron ranking 9th in All-Star voting, every Bronny garbage time appearance, they all add up to a picture of an organization that has lost its way. The Lakers empire that once seemed so stable, so dominant, so assured of its place at the center of the basketball universe is now teetering on the edge of irrelevance. Fans are angry, players are disconnected, the coach is frustrated, and the star power that was supposed to carry this team is fading before our eyes. Ending and disclaimer. This is the reality of the 2025-26 Los Angeles Lakers season, a franchise in crisis, a legend in decline, a son struggling to escape his father's shadow, and a fan base watching their team implode in real time. Whether they can salvage this season or if this marks the beginning of a painful rebuilding process remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, the golden era of Lakers dominance feels like it's coming to an end, and nobody seems quite sure how to stop the bleeding. Disclaimer. The information presented in this video is based on publicly available reports, media coverage, fan reactions, and official NBA statistics as of late December 2025. Situations involving player performance, team dynamics, and organizational decisions can evolve rapidly in professional sports. This analysis represents a snapshot in time and reflects the reported events and public sentiments surrounding the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron James, and Bronny James during this period of the season. Viewer discretion and personal research are always encouraged when forming opinions about ongoing sports narratives.